man in Turkey was doing renovations in 1963. Cappadocia region, small town called Derinkuyu. He was knocking down a basement wall when something caught his attention. Empty space behind the plaster. He kept chipping away. The wall came down completely. Behind it, a room carved directly from volcanic stone. And at the back of that room, a tunnel descending into blackness. He grabbed a light and followed it down. Before I tell you what he found, I need you to stay until the second half of this story, because that's where I'll explain something crucial. Not just what this place is, but why understanding it will actually help you fall asleep tonight. There's a specific psychological principle at work in this ancient structure. Once you understand how these people transformed existential dread into something protective and permanent, you'll be able to apply that same principle to your own anxieties. And then you'll sleep. So stay with me. The answer is waiting. But first, let me show you what was hiding beneath his house. The tunnel kept going, down through solid rock, steps carved into the walls. The air got colder as he descended. One level, then another, then another. He kept going. When archaeologists finally arrived to map what this man had stumbled into, they worked for months. The tunnel network extended 280 feet into the earth, 18 distinct levels carved from compressed volcanic ash, miles of interconnected passages threading through thousands of chambers, ventilation shafts running vertically through solid rock, water wells, storage rooms, living spaces, chapels, even schools. This was Derinkuyu, the largest discovered underground city in the world. The numbers are staggering. This place could house 20,000 people, not for a few days during a raid, for months, potentially years. The ventilation system still works. After all this time, the wells still hold water. Massive stone doors, circular slabs weighing between 400 and 1,000 pounds, still roll smoothly on their ancient tracks. Each level can be sealed independently. Once those doors close from the inside, nothing gets through. Someone built this. The earliest sections date back at least 2,800 years, maybe older. Nobody knows for certain. But here's the real question, the one I can't stop thinking about. Why? Why would a civilization carve an entire city from solid volcanic rock? Why descend 18 levels underground? Why engineer it to sustain 20,000 people in complete isolation for extended periods? Why the massive rolling stone doors? Why the ability to seal each level separately? What were they hiding from? Building something like this isn't just difficult. It defies comprehension. This isn't a basement. This isn't a storage cellar. You're excavating millions of cubic feet of volcanic tuff using nothing but hand tools, bronze implements, iron picks, no explosives, no machinery, no modern engineering whatsoever. The rock is called tough, compressed volcanic ash. That's both good news and terrible news. Good news, when freshly exposed, it's softer than granite. You can actually carve it with primitive tools. Bad news, it's still rock. You're still removing tiny fragments at a time, hour after hour, year after year, generation after generation. Let me put this in perspective. Derinkuyu goes 280 feet down, 18 levels. The complex spreads across approximately 4 square miles. Conservative estimates place the total excavated volume at around 2.5 million cubic feet of removed stone. That rock had to go somewhere. There's no enormous debris pile near the city, no ancient quarry in the area filled with discarded tuff. The stone essentially vanished. Either they transported it miles away or they pulverized it to powder and scattered it across the landscape. Either scenario requires labor that borders on the absurd. But it gets stranger. They weren't just digging, they were sculpting. Every chamber features smooth walls and curved ceilings, decorative columns. Some passages have staircases carved directly from the bedrock. The ventilation shafts run perfectly vertical. For hundreds of feet, the wells are narrow and precise, dropping straight down through solid stone. This is architecture. This is art, not mining. And they carved it all in total darkness. Think about what that means. You're working 200 feet underground. Zero natural light, no windows, no skylights. Your only illumination comes from oil lamps or torches. The smoke from those flames fills the chamber, choking you, stinging your eyes, making it almost impossible to see. And in those conditions, you're supposed to carve precise architectural details into solid rock. The ventilation system alone is an engineering miracle. Derinkuyu has 52 ventilation shafts. They run from the surface down to the lowest levels. Some extend more than 180 feet deep. They're roughly 3 feet in diameter. Perfectly vertical, perfectly straight. How do you excavate a vertical shaft 180 feet deep through solid volcanic rock? You can't start from the bottom and work your way up. Gravity doesn't work that way. You have to begin at the surface and dig downward. But if you're digging straight down into darkness, how do you remove the debris? How do you get tools to workers at the bottom of the shaft? How do you prevent the whole thing from collapsing as you go deeper? And here's the critical detail. These ventilation shafts had to be completed first, before you could excavate the rest of the city, because without proper airflow, everyone underground would suffocate. You need functioning ventilation before you can have 20,000 people living in sealed chambers beneath the earth. So the first generation of workers had to dig these shafts blind, not knowing if the system would actually work, not knowing if the entire project was even viable, just descending through darkness and stone and hoping they got it right. The water system is equally baffling. Multiple wells penetrate Derinkuyu. They tap into underground aquifers, some more than 180 feet deep. The wells are narrow, maybe 2 feet wide, dug vertically through solid tuff until they finally strike water. The wells are positioned perfectly. They hit water at different depths throughout the complex. This means whoever designed this city understood the geology on a profound level. They knew where underground aquifers existed. They knew exactly how deep to excavate to reach them. They planned the entire city around water sources they couldn't see. How? There's no room for trial and error here. You can't dig a test well 180 feet deep, realize you missed the aquifer, and casually try again 10 feet over. Every well had to succeed on the first attempt. The planning had to be flawless. The water system at Derinkuyu is maybe the most impressive element of the entire complex, not because of the size or depth, because of what it reveals about the builder's mindset. They didn't just need water. They needed clean, reliable water that couldn't be contaminated from the surface. Water that would flow continuously for months. They achieved it. The main well shaft drops from the surface all the way to the lowest level. That's 280 feet of perfectly vertical shaft through solid tuff, about 3 feet in diameter. You could drop a stone from the top and it would fall straight to the bottom without touching the sides. This wasn't simple to construct. You can't dig a well from the bottom upward. You start at the surface, which means someone above was drilling down while people below were excavating chambers. The two groups had to meet precisely, had to align perfectly. They did. The well supplied water to every level. Small channels branched off at each floor, carved into the walls at gentle slopes so water would flow naturally. Each level featured collection basins, storage pools, and distribution points. The water was clean. The well tapped deep underground aquifers, natural filtration through layers of volcanic rock, no surface contamination possible. Even if enemies discovered exactly where the city was located, even if they found the main entrance, they couldn't reach the water source to poison it. That's intentional design. But here's what disturbs me about it. The well system is far too sophisticated for a simple hiding place. If you're just taking shelter underground for a few days during a raid, you bring water with you. Clay vessels, leather bags. You don't need a permanent well system with multi-level distribution. This system suggests long-term habitation, weeks, months, possibly longer. The wells at other underground cities in Cappadocia tell the same story. At Kaymakli, another massive complex nearby, multiple wells provide redundant systems and backup sources. At Ozkonak, the third largest site, wells connect between levels in an integrated network. These people weren't just concerned about water. They were obsessed with it. Look at the storage capacity. Derinkuyu has dozens of large chambers positioned near the wells. These rooms have drainage channels cut into the floors and collection basins in the corners. They're designed to hold water, massive quantities of it. Archaeologists estimate the city could store enough water for 20,000 people for several months. That's millions of gallons, all underground, all protected. Why so much? What scenario demands that level of preparation? A siege doesn't make sense. If an army surrounds your position, they're not maintaining the siege for months. They have their own supply problems. Ancient armies lacked the logistics for extended sieges of hidden underground complexes. Too expensive, too difficult, too time-consuming. A drought is possible. Cappadocia experiences dry periods. Water becomes scarce. But you don't build 18 levels underground to escape drought. You dig deeper wells on the surface. You build cisterns. You relocate to areas where water is available. Unless you can't relocate. Unless something prevents you from living on the surface at all. The water channels reveal something else interesting. They're designed with flow control mechanisms. Small stone plugs could block channels, divert water to different levels, shut off supply to upper floors if needed. That's tactical thinking. If enemies breach the first level, you seal it off, cut the water supply, force them to either retreat or push deeper. Each level becomes a defensive position. Each level can be isolated. The wells themselves are defensible. The shafts are narrow. Only one person can climb at a time. Small guard chambers sit adjacent to the main shaft at several levels. Someone could position themselves there with a spear. Anyone attempting to climb up or down becomes an easy target. But defended against what? Human enemies climbing a well shaft? That's not a realistic military threat. If invaders locate your city and breach your defenses, they're not going to attempt climbing down a wet vertical shaft in complete darkness. They'll use the passages, the stairs, the main access routes, unless the threat comes from the well itself, something that might enter through the water source, something that needs to be kept out. Ancient texts from this region don't mention the underground cities explicitly, but they reference water contamination frequently. Poisoned wells, disease spreading through water sources. The Hittite tablets, written during the era when these cities might have been constructed, describe plagues and sickness spreading through entire populations. Maybe that's the answer. Maybe the water system isn't just about supply, it's about isolation, about creating a completely sealed environment where nothing from outside can penetrate. Not air, not water, not disease. The wells tap deep aquifers, water that's been filtered through hundreds of feet of rock, water that never touched the surface. In a world where surface water might carry contamination, where rivers might spread disease, where wells might be deliberately poisoned, this makes sense. The storage capacity makes sense too. You're not storing water just for drinking. You're storing it because you can't risk opening the well shaft, can't risk any connection to the surface world. You seal everything. Use what you stored. Wait. Wait for what? For the danger to pass, for contamination to clear, for whatever threat exists above to move on or die out. The channels between levels support this interpretation. They're not just for distribution, they're for containment. If one level becomes contaminated, you seal it, cut the water, isolate it completely. The people on other levels survive. This is quarantine thinking. This is pandemic architecture built in stone, built to last, built by people who'd witnessed what happens when disease spreads unchecked through a population with no defenses. The doors make this tangible, make it real. They're massive circular stone wheels, approximately 5 feet in diameter. Some weigh over 1,000 pounds. They roll on tracks carved directly into the floor. When closed, they seal passages completely. No gaps, no cracks, just solid stone blocking the way. Each door has a hole in the center, about 6 inches across, just large enough to thrust a spear through. That's deliberate design. You can defend the door from behind. Anyone trying to move it gets a spear in the face. But you can't reach through to unlock the mechanism. Can't slip a tool through to rule it open. The doors only open from inside. That's critical. There's no handle on the exterior side, no way to grip the stone, no way to gain leverage. If you're in the tunnel when the door rolls shut, you're trapped. You're not getting through. Archaeologists found these doors at multiple levels throughout Derinkuyu, not just at the entrance. Every major passage has one. Every connection between floors. Every critical junction. The city is divided into segments. Each segment can be independently isolated. That's unusual defensive architecture. Castles have gates, city walls have doors, but you don't seal off every corridor. You don't create dozens of separate zones unless you expect to lose ground, unless you're planning to retreat level by level, sealing each section behind you as you descend deeper. The doors tell a story. Someone enters the city. Maybe they breach the first level. You don't panic. You fall back to the next level. Roll the door closed behind you. Now they're stuck. They can't follow. They can't break through 1,000 pounds of stone. They're trapped in a maze of empty chambers while you're safe below. But here's the thing. If it's just raiders, why would they follow you down at all? Raiders want livestock, grain, gold, things they can carry away. They don't want to fight through 18 levels of underground passages in complete darkness to capture people hiding in sealed chambers. The doors suggest a different kind of threat, something that would pursue you underground, something that wouldn't stop at the surface level, something persistent. Look at the placement. The first door sits about 50 feet from the main entrance. That's close. You get everyone inside quickly. Move them past the first checkpoint. Seal it immediately. Then there's another door, 100 feet deeper. Then another. Then another. 7 major doors between the surface and the lowest level. Each one buying time. Each one creating another barrier. The doors on the lower levels are different, heavier, thicker, better engineered. The ones near the surface are functional. The ones deep underground are fortresses. Like they expected that if something breached the first few barriers, the lower doors needed to hold no matter what. Some doors have additional features. Stone bars that drop into recessed slots, secondary locking mechanisms, reinforcement channels carved beside the main track. These are just rolled shut. They're secured, barricaded, made permanent. Why? If you're hiding from an army, you don't need that level of security. Armies don't have time to chip through stone doors. They have campaigns to fight, supply lines to maintain. They move on. But if you're hiding from something else, something with patience, something that might wait, then every additional barrier matters. The doors at Keimakli, the nearby complex, feature similar design. Same weight class, same one-way mechanism. At Ozkanek, they discovered doors with additional defensive features. Channels above for pouring hot oil, murder holes in the ceiling, defensive positions. This is sophisticated military engineering. Someone studied how to defend underground spaces, how to create choke points, how to transform passages into killing zones. The Romans wrote extensively about defensive architecture. They had manuals, strategies, battle-tested tactics. But they never described anything like this, never wrote about defending underground cities with rolling stone doors. This knowledge came from somewhere else. The doors show wear patterns, grooves in the tracks, polished surfaces on the stone. These doors were used, not once, many times, rolled closed, rolled open, closed again. The stone is worn smooth in places from repeated movement. That means the threat was recurring. Whatever they were hiding from, it wasn't a single catastrophic event. It was cyclical, predictable enough to engineer permanent defenses for, frequent enough to use those defenses regularly. Some doors are jammed now, stuck in place, the tracks blocked with millennia of debris. Archaeologists had to excavate carefully around them to avoid damaging the mechanisms. When they finally cleared one door and attempted to move it, it still rolled. After thousands of years, the engineering still functions. The tracks are perfectly level. The stone is perfectly circular. The weight is balanced. You can operate these doors with a single person. Push from inside. The door moves, seals the passage, locks you in. That's the part that disturbs me. These doors don't just keep threats out, they keep you in. Once closed, you're committed. You're underground. You're sealed away from fresh air, from sunlight, from the outside world entirely. Who makes that choice? Who says, yes, I'll take my family 200 feet underground and roll stone doors shut behind us? What has to be happening on the surface to make that the better option? The passages between levels are designed to kill invaders, slowly, methodically, with cold calculation. Most tunnels at Derinkuyu are narrow, about 5 feet tall, maybe 3 feet wide. You can't stand upright. You have to crouch, bend forward, move sideways in some sections. Your shoulders scrape the walls. That's intentional design. A single defender can hold a narrow passage. One person with a spear controls the entire space. Attackers can't spread out. Can't use superior numbers, can't overwhelm you with force. They have to advance one at a time, and each one dies. The ceiling height changes constantly. You're walking hunched over. Then suddenly the ceiling drops lower. You have to crawl. Then it rises again, then drops again. This isn't random erosion. This is tactical design. When you're crawling, you're completely vulnerable. Your hands are on the ground. Your weapon is useless. Your head is down. Someone waiting around the corner has every advantage. You can't see them, can't block an attack, can't dodge. You just die. The passages twist sharply. Corners every 20 or 30 feet. You can't see what's ahead, can't charge forward, can't build momentum. Every turn is a potential ambush. Every corner might be your last. There are alcoves cut into the walls at regular intervals, small recesses just large enough for one person to stand in. These aren't decorative niches. They're fighting positions. Someone hides in the alcove. You walk past in the darkness. They step out behind you. You never knew they were there. The floors slope irregularly, sometimes ascending, sometimes descending. Never flat for long. This exhausts you, wears you down, throws off your balance. When you're tired and unbalanced, you make mistakes. Mistakes get you killed. Some passages feature steps carved directly from the rock, but the steps are irregular. Different heights, different depths. You can't find a rhythm. Can't move quickly. You have to watch your feet constantly. And while you're watching your feet, you're not watching ahead. The ventilation shafts create another hazard. They run vertically through multiple levels, about 2 feet in diameter. If you're defending, you can drop things down these shafts. Rocks, boiling water, hot oil, whatever you have. The shaft carries it straight down to the level below. Anyone in the passage underneath gets hit. They can't see it coming, can't block it. The shaft is too narrow to climb, too smooth to grip. There are murder holes in some ceilings, small openings just large enough to thrust a spear through. You're walking down a passage in the darkness. Someone above you drives a spear down through the ceiling. You never saw them, never had a chance to defend yourself. The passages connect in specific patterns. Multiple routes exist between levels, but not all routes are equal. Some are obvious, wide, well-traveled. These are traps. The real defenders use the narrow passages, the hidden routes, the paths that twist incomprehensibly. They know the maze by heart. You don't. Dead ends exist throughout the city, passages that appear promising but go nowhere. You follow a tunnel. It looks like it's leading somewhere. Then it just stops. Solid wall. Now you have to turn around, go back, and while you're backtracking, confused and frustrated, someone is waiting for you. The lighting makes everything worse. You're carrying torches or oil lamps. The smoke fills the passages, gets in your eyes, makes you cough, limits your vision. The defenders don't need light. They know these tunnels by touch, by memory. They can navigate in complete darkness. You can't. Sound behaves strangely underground. Echoes bounce off stone walls in unpredictable ways. You hear footsteps, but can't determine where they're coming from. Ahead? Behind? Above? Below? The acoustics are disorienting, frightening. You're jumping at shadows, swinging at nothing. The temperature shifts constantly. Some levels are warm, others are cold. The changes affect your breathing, your stamina, your judgment. You're sweating in one passage, shivering in the next. Your body can't regulate, can't adapt. Water appears in unexpected places, puddles on floors, dripping from ceilings. This isn't accidental drainage. These are designed obstacles. The water makes floors slippery, makes footing uncertain. You're already bent over in a narrow passage, moving through darkness. Now you're trying not to slip, trying not to fall. Falling means dying. The stone doors divide the city into zones, but the zones aren't equal sizes. Some are large, some are tiny. Defenders can retreat through small zones quickly, seal the door, move to the next level. Attackers get trapped in large zones, wandering, searching, finding nothing. There are false doors, stone wheels carved into walls that look like the real defensive doors, but they don't actually function. They don't lead anywhere. You waste time trying to open them, waste energy, waste hope. Meanwhile, the real door is somewhere else, and it's already closed. The deepest levels have the most challenging passages, narrower, lower ceilings, more twisted. By the time you fight down that far, you're exhausted. You've been underground for hours, maybe days, running out of supplies, running out of air, running out of will, and the passages keep getting harder. Some tunnels have deliberately weakened sections in the ceiling, loose stones. Defenders can collapse these tunnels, bury attackers alive, or just block the passage, force you to find another route, force you deeper into the maze. The chapel levels have strange acoustics. Sound carries differently there. Voices echo in ways that make you think there are more defenders than actually exist, make you think they're everywhere. That makes you panic. and panic kills you underground. You start running, making noise, giving away your position. The defenders just wait. Listen. Follow the sound. Find you. The schoolrooms have low benches, stone desks carved from the floor. These become obstacles in a fight. You trip over them, bang into them in the darkness. They slow you down. The defenders know where every bench is located. They move around them easily. You don't. Storage rooms create another tactical problem. They're filled with clay jars, grain sacks, supplies. You can't see through them, can't move through them quickly. Defenders hide behind storage, attack, disappear, attack again from a different position. Some levels housed livestock, sheep, goats, maybe chickens. The animals create noise, movement. You think you see something. It's just a sheep. You relax your guard for a moment. Then the spear comes. There's no good way to attack this place. You can't besiege it. The water comes from deep underground and the food is stored inside. You can't starve them out. Can't thirst them out. You can't smoke them out. The ventilation system is too sophisticated. You can't flood it. The drainage channels are designed to prevent water accumulation. Water flows away, doesn't pool, doesn't rise. You can't dig around it. The rock is too hard. The city is too vast. You'd need years, decades. And while you're digging, they're fine, living normally, eating, waiting. Your only option is to enter, fight through, level by level, passage by passage, door by door. And each level costs you soldiers, costs you time, costs you morale. By the third level, your troops are hesitant. By the fifth level, they're refusing orders. By the seventh level, you've already lost. This is defensive architecture at its absolute peak. Not castle walls, not moats, not towers. This is weaponizing the earth itself, using darkness, using confusion, using fear. Someone understood perfectly how to defend underground space, how to transform every passage into a trap, every corner into an ambush, every level into a killing ground. They didn't just build a hiding place. They built a fortress, an underground fortress designed to bleed attackers dry, designed to make invasion impossible. Whatever they feared on the surface, down here they were untouchable. Not because the enemy couldn't find them, because the enemy couldn't reach them, couldn't fight them effectively, couldn't win. This is the part where it gets personal, where you need to understand what this meant for the people who lived here. It's easy to focus on stone and engineering, on defensive tactics and military strategy. But there's another dimension entirely, the human dimension. The people who lived in Derinkuyu weren't soldiers. They were families, children, elderly. Regular people who spent months underground, sealed behind stone doors, living in darkness. That does something profound to the human mind. Let's start with light. Humans need it. Our bodies are calibrated to the cycle of day and night. Sunlight regulates our sleep patterns, our mood, our mental health. It's not optional. It's biological. In Derinkuyu, real sunlight never reached the living areas. Only the uppermost levels received any natural light at all. The rest of the city existed in absolute darkness unless illuminated by torches or oil lamps. The air was constantly thick with smoke. Shadows danced on walls. Faces flickered in and out of visibility. After days or weeks, it becomes easy to lose track of time entirely. You forget what day it is. Your circadian rhythm drifts. Psychologists call this cave syndrome. When people are isolated from the outside world for extended periods, you get confused. Your internal clock malfunctions. Some people become depressed. Others just become exhausted, listless. Even modern miners with electric lights and sophisticated ventilation can struggle with this. In Derinkuyu, there was no electricity, just firelight, just darkness, and no clocks to help you track the passage of hours. People living underground would have had to invent their own temporal markers. Maybe they structured time around meals, around prayers. Maybe they listened for sounds from above. Storms, thunder, footsteps. The surface could be peaceful or burning with war, and you'd only know what you heard through hundreds of feet of stone. There's evidence people tried to maintain normalcy. Archaeologists found schoolrooms with benches carved from stone, places for children to learn, chapels for worship, storage areas for food, even pens for animals. They carved out spaces that felt like home, like normal life. But nothing truly replaces the sky. You can't fake sunlight. You can't manufacture fresh air. The body knows the difference. The mind knows. Let me tell you about what happens to people in confined spaces. There was a study in the 1960s. A French researcher named Michel Siffer spent months in a cave, deliberately cut off from any indication of time. No sun, no clocks, no schedule. After a few weeks, he completely lost track. He slept at random intervals, ate whenever he felt hungry. His sense of day and night collapsed entirely. He got lonely. His mind started playing tricks on him. He experienced hallucinations, seeing things that weren't actually there. And that was one man in the modern era, with proper preparation and a support team waiting above. Now multiply that experience by thousands. Parents trying to keep children calm, elderly people missing the sun, young people desperate to run, to move, to escape the confines of stone, all of them stuck in a labyrinth beneath the earth, listening constantly for any sign that it's safe to return to the surface. Think about the noise. The city would have been full of sound, footsteps echoing, voices bouncing off stone walls, children crying, animals bleating, every sound amplified by hard walls and hard floors. There's no soft furniture to absorb noise, no grass, no trees, no fabric hangings, just stone. Everything gets louder. Every argument, every laugh, every sigh, every whisper echoes. Some people would adapt, learn to live with it. Others might crack under the constant acoustic pressure. And the smell. Let's not forget the smell. You have hundreds or thousands of people living in close quarters, cooking over oil lamps or small fires, storing food, keeping animals. Human waste has to go somewhere. No matter how sophisticated the ventilation system, it's never going to smell fresh. You'd adapt to the constant presence of sweat, smoke, damp earth, decay. Some days it might be genuinely difficult to breathe, especially if you're deep in the lower levels where air circulation is poorest. Then there's the fear, the underlying psychological weight of why you're there in the first place. The city wasn't a vacation destination. People didn't descend underground for fun. They went because of danger. Maybe war, maybe invasion, maybe something worse. Every day you'd listen for distant sounds from above. Every night you'd wonder if someone was trying to break in, if the doors would hold, if you'd ever see the surface again. Children would ask questions. When can we go home? Why are we here? What's happening up there? Parents would have to make up stories, or maybe tell the truth. Either way, stress hangs over everything, permeates every moment. Imagine the panic when the city filled up. Picture the chaos. Hundreds of people rushing the entrances, families carrying whatever they could grab, rolling the giant stone doors shut as quickly as possible. Families would get separated in the confusion, people shouting, trying to find their children or their parents in the crush of bodies and darkness. Once the doors closed, the outside world disappeared completely. You'd be alone with whoever made it inside. Maybe you'd never see the sun again. Let's talk about health. Underground living takes a severe toll on the human body. Without sunlight, people can't produce vitamin D. That leads to weak bones, muscle soreness, chronic fatigue. Children are at greatest risk. Growing bodies need sunlight. Without it, they develop rickets, bone deformities, developmental problems. Skin gets pale, almost translucent. Eyes struggle to adjust. Cuts and scrapes heal more slowly in the damp darkness. There's not much room for physical exercise either. No fields to run through, no open spaces to stretch out in, just narrow passages and crowded rooms. People would become stiff, muscles would atrophy. Even standing up straight was difficult in the low tunnels. Over time, people would grow weaker, not stronger. What about food? The storage rooms held grain, dried fruit, maybe salted meat. But fresh food would run out quickly. No gardens underground, no hunting, no foraging. After a while, meals would become bland and increasingly scarce. Hunger gnaws at you. Tempers shorten. People argue more. It's a pattern seen in every siege, every famine, every disaster throughout history. The same applies to water. The well system was brilliant, but it wasn't infinite. If too many people crowded in at once, water might run low, or pumps might break, distribution might fail. Thirst makes people desperate, violent, irrational. And then there's the absolute lack of privacy. Imagine living with thousands of strangers in tight quarters. Everyone hears everything. Everyone sees everything. You can't escape, can't have a private conversation, can't have a private moment. For some people, that loss of privacy would be worse than the darkness, worse than the hunger, the constant presence of others. The inability to ever be truly alone would drive them mad. There's evidence of all this in the archaeological record. Scratch marks on walls where people counted days. Desperate messages carved into stone. Evidence of fights, broken pottery, bloodstains that soaked into porous stone. Not everyone made it. Not everyone could handle the psychological pressure of living like this for months at a time. Some people would have broken, would have demanded the doors be opened, consequences be damned. Others might have become violent, lashing out at perceived threats that didn't exist. The community would have to deal with that. Restrain people, lock them away, maybe worse. That's the hidden cost of survival. The psychological damage that doesn't show up in engineering diagrams or architectural surveys. These people survived, but survival came at a price that's difficult to quantify. So why? Why build this? Why spend generations carving a city from solid rock? Why design it for 20,000 people to live underground for months at a time? The standard answer is invasions. Armies swept through Cappadocia for thousands of years. Hittites, Persians, Romans, Arabs, Mongols, Turks. The region sits at a crossroads of empires. Having a refuge makes sense, but here's what bothers me. You don't build something this elaborate for occasional raids. Raids last days, maybe a week. You could hide in caves for that. You could flee to the mountains, wait for the army to pass through and move on. This is different. This is architecture of sustained terror. This is what you build when the threat isn't temporary. When you know it's coming back. When you know you'll need to disappear underground for months at a time, repeatedly, for generations. And Derinkuyu isn't alone. Archaeologists have discovered dozens of underground cities in Cappadocia, hundreds of smaller tunnel complexes. Some connect to each other through miles of underground passages. You could travel between cities without ever surfacing. An entire civilization built around the ability to vanish underground. The question isn't just what they were hiding from. It's what did they know that we've forgotten? Theory 1. Climate catastrophe. Some researchers propose environmental disaster. Ancient records reference catastrophic droughts, crop failures, famine, temperature extremes that made surface living unbearable or impossible. The Mediterranean climate has always been volatile. Periods of extreme heat, periods of bitter cold. If the surface became uninhabitable during certain seasons, underground offers natural insulation. The temperature in Derinkuyu remains relatively stable year-round. Cool in summer, warmer than the surface in winter. Maybe they retreated underground during climate extremes, waited for conditions to stabilize, emerged when it was safe. The storage capacity supports this theory. Derinkuyu could hold enough food and water for 20,000 people for several months. That suggests preparation for prolonged environmental threat. But climate disasters don't explain the military features, the massive stone doors, the murder holes, the defensively designed maze of passages. You don't need those to hide from weather. Theory 2. Religious persecution. Early Christians faced systematic persecution throughout the Roman Empire. Authorities hunted them down, tortured them, executed them in public spectacles. Many historians believe Christians used these underground cities as refuges during periods of intense persecution. The chapels support this interpretation. Crosses carved into walls, altar spaces, baptismal fonts, religious iconography. If soldiers were actively searching for you, if being discovered meant crucifixion or being thrown to lions, underground makes perfect sense. You seal the doors from inside, wait for the persecution wave to pass, pray they don't find you. The doors locking from inside support this. You're not preparing to sally out and fight. You're hiding, sealed in stone, hoping they give up and leave. But persecution doesn't explain the age. The earliest sections of Derinkuyu date to at least 2,800 years ago, long before Christianity existed, long before the Roman Empire, Christians used these cities, but they didn't build them. Someone else did. Someone with a much older reason. Theory 3. The Hittite Collapse. Around 1200 BC, the entire eastern Mediterranean collapsed. The Bronze Age ended catastrophically. Empires fell. Cities burned. Populations disappeared. Historians call it the Bronze Age collapse. We still don't fully understand what caused it. Some evidence points to the Sea Peoples, mysterious maritime raiders who attacked coastlines. Others suggest earthquakes. Others point to drought and famine. Whatever happened, it was apocalyptic. Civilization ending for many cultures. The Hittites, who controlled this region, vanished almost overnight. Their cities were abandoned. Their palaces burned, their language nearly forgotten. Maybe the underground cities were built during this period as a desperate response to whatever was destroying the surface world. Maybe they worked. Maybe that's why some people survived when empires fell. Theory 4. Something we don't talk about. Ancient texts from this region mention things that don't fit neatly into historical categories. Darkness that lasted for days, the sky turning black, stars falling from heaven, fire raining from above. Cappadocia sits in volcanic territory. Major eruptions would produce ash clouds that block the sun, pyroclastic flows that incinerate everything. The only survival strategy is getting underground immediately. Others interpret them as meteor impacts, large enough to generate blast waves, firestorms, airborne debris. Underground is the only safe place during something like that. Still others suggest plague, contagion spreading through populations faster than anyone could stop, contaminated water supplies, disease-carrying invaders. The only defense is complete isolation, sealing yourself underground where nothing from outside can reach you. The water system supports this interpretation. Wells tapping deep aquifers that never touch the surface. Even if surface water became contaminated with disease, Derinkuyu's water would remain clean. The ability to seal each level independently supports quarantine protocols. If one level becomes infected, you isolate it completely, cut off water, seal the doors, let the disease burn itself out, while other levels remain safe. This is pandemic architecture, built by people who understood contagion, who'd witnessed what happens when disease spreads through a population with no defenses. Maybe that's the real answer? Maybe the threat wasn't armies or weather or persecution. Maybe it was disease. Invisible, inevitable, cyclical. You can't fight disease with swords. You can't negotiate with plague. Your only option is isolation. Complete, total isolation. Waiting for the danger to pass. This is what I promised you. This is why understanding this helps you sleep. These people faced something terrifying. Something frequent enough and predictable enough that they spent generations building elaborate underground defenses. They taught their children to live in darkness. They designed their entire civilization around the ability to vanish beneath the earth. But here's the crucial part, the part that matters for you tonight. They didn't panic. They didn't despair. They didn't give up. They transformed fear into action, terror into engineering, anxiety into multi-generational projects that protected people they would never meet. They created something that worked. The ventilation still functions after thousands of years. The water still flows. The doors still roll smoothly on their ancient tracks. After 2,800 years, the city remains functional. Ready, waiting. That's not paranoia. That's not cowardice. That's caring about people you'll never meet, your great-great-great-grandchildren. Building something that will keep them safe long after you're dust. Think about the craftsmanship, the care evident in every carved niche, every smooth wall, every precisely vertical ventilation shaft. These weren't built hastily in a panic. They were built beautifully. Even though they were places of fear, they were also places of refuge, places of safety, places where families gathered, where children learned, where communities worshipped, where life continued despite the danger above. The people who lived there weren't just hiding, they were living, having meals together, teaching the next generation, maintaining their faith, preserving their culture, maintaining hope. Yes, it was dark. Yes, it was confining. Yes, it was frightening. But it was also proof that humans can survive anything, that we adapt, that we protect each other, that we build and plan and care for the future, even when the present is terrifying. The doors eventually opened. People returned to the surface. Life continued. Civilization rebuilt. The city remained, waiting, ready if needed again. But mostly, it stands as a testament to human resilience, to ingenuity, to the extraordinary lengths we'll go to protect what matters. Your anxieties tonight, whatever they are, they're real. I'm not dismissing them. I'm not telling you they don't matter. But you're part of a species that carved entire cities from solid rock using hand tools, that engineered solutions to threats that would make modern people give up entirely, that survived everything history could throw at them. You have that same capacity within you, that same resilience, that same ability to endure. And tonight, you're not in an underground city. You're not 280 feet beneath the earth, sealed behind stone doors, living in darkness, listening for danger above. You're in a bed, with light available if you want it, with fresh air, with freedom to move, with safety. Whatever you're worried about, you're not facing it alone in absolute darkness, hundreds of feet underground, wondering if you'll ever see the sky again. You're here. You're safe. You're warm. The ancient builders of Derinkuyu knew something profound. They knew that after months underground, after the darkness and the fear and the confinement, eventually the doors would open. The threat would pass. They'd return to the surface. The sun would still be there. Life would continue. Whatever you're facing tonight, it will pass too. Maybe not tonight, maybe not tomorrow, but it will pass. Everything does. And in the meantime, you can rest. You can let go of the anxiety. You can sleep. Because humans have survived far worse, much worse than anything you're facing right now. And we're still here. The city is still there too, still functional after thousands of years, still protecting, even if only in memory now. Still reminding us that fear can be transformed into something lasting, something protective, something that keeps people safe for millennia. That's the real secret of Derinkuyu. Not that ancient people were terrified, but that they transformed that terror into love, into protection, into something permanent that would outlast the threat by thousands of years. They didn't just survive, they built something that would help their descendants survive. And that's something worth resting with tonight. That's something worth sleeping on. You're part of that same lineage, that same species, that same capacity for transforming fear into protective action. And tonight, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to build anything. You don't have to solve anything. You just have to rest. The builders of Derinkuyu did the work. They built the safety. They created the refuge. All you have to do is sleep. The doors are still there. After 2,800 years, still functional, still ready, still waiting. Not because the danger still exists, but because the protection still exists. The care, the love, the planning, built into stone, built to last, built for you. For all of us, sleep now. You're safe. You're protected. You're part of something ancient and resilient and unbreakable. The city remembers. The stones remember. And they're still standing, still protecting, still keeping watch while you sleep. So sleep, let go. You're safe. Safe beneath the earth, protected by stone, surrounded by the work of thousands of years. The doors are closed. You're safe inside. Nothing can reach you here. Just darkness and safety and stone. Please, sleep now.